Welcome back. I think it's time to create our own server now. So let's create a new file called server.js. And in order for nodemon to listen to server.js, let's just type in nodemon and then server.js. Now, if I save this, nodemon will listen to this as long as I say npm start. As I've mentioned before, Node comes with its own HTTP module, and that's what we're going to use to create our server. And it's very, very simple to use. We simply grab the HTTP module and then create a server by defining it, saying HTTP create server. And this create server will create an error function. And within here, for now, let's just do console.log. I hear you. Thanks for the request. And then finally, we have to do server.listen and give it the port number that we want to listen for. So let's do 3000 for now. But again, you can do anything. You can do 3001 if you want, but 3000 is nice. Let's do node server.js. And it looks like it's just hanging there. But let's go to port 3000 on our local host, that is our machine, and see what happens. If I open up a new tab and go to localhost 3000, nothing's happening. If I open up the console, nothing's there. But if I go back, I see, I hear you. Thanks for the request. And that is because, remember, server.js is running in Node. It's running here in the terminal. But it's listening to connections. So when I hit refresh here, or I press enter and try to connect, it will be listening and it will run console.log. And you can see that the second I hear you, thanks for the request is here. If I refresh 2 more times, well, again, I get 2 more. But right now, the browser is just hanging there because we're not doing anything. We're not responding with anything. You can see at the bottom, it says waiting for localhost. We're just console logging on our end, but we're not giving any response. Let's do that. I'm going to remove the console log and use the parameters that create server gets us. So anytime we try to connect, we have a request and then a response parameter that we can use. And let's make this a little bit smaller just so we can see. And within here, we can do something like response dot set header content type. We're letting you know what kind of content we are going to send, and it's going to be text HTML. And this is just a standard way of declaring content type. And we'll say response end with an h1 tag that says hello. If I save this and rerun, well, again, we have to restart our server. So let's get nodemon involved in here so that it listens to file changes. I'll go to package.json. I'll save this and now run npm start. See that everything is running. Let's go back to our server.js file. If I go back and refresh, I get hello. If I go to the network tab, I see that localhost, I get a 200 response. If I click on this, I see that the response was h1 hello. If I go to headers, I see that it was a 200 status code and the content type was text HTML. Very cool. I can also listen to requests. So for example, in here, I could have said console.log requests headers. I could have also said method, and finally something like URL. The request gives us a lot of information about the request that we received. And just so we are clear on what each one of these are, I can say headers, method, and URL. If I save this and rerun, I see that I get headers are localhost 3000. We see that user agent was Mozilla Macintosh, so that's what we used. We used an Apple to make that request, all right. And the method was a get method, and URL was just the backslash. Let's just comment out the headers for now and show you how things change if I now enter localhost profile 123. I get method get and URL was profile 123. So we get information about the request that the front end made, which is very cool. Now, with our response, we responded with text HTML, but you remember JSON, right? We talked about how useful JSON is when doing AJAX requests. Can we do that here? Of course. If I go and change content type to application JSON, and you'll just have to get used to this, but this is the way you say that the content type is JSON. Now we can send a JavaScript object such as user, and we'll say name, John, hobby, skating. Now this user I can pass here, but remember, in order to transfer between the wires, we need to use JSON.stringify. And make sure you check out the JSON video if that is confusing to you. But again, we're changing this object into a JSON string so that we can send it over the wires. If I save, and let's go back and refresh, I get, look at that, a JSON response. Again, name John, hobby, skating. And if I click on the network tab here, I see that the content type is application JSON, and the response is in JSON format. So on the front end, we'll run JSON.parse, and then this in order to convert it to a JavaScript object. Very cool. We've just created our very first server. But this HTTP is pretty bare bones. As you can imagine, building servers is something that everybody does that has a website. And there are many tools that we can use now that are more elegant than running HTTP. And the most popular and the best one to use with Node.js is something called Express, which we're going to talk about in the next video. I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.